Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, the Linux Lighthouse, and I make videos about OpenSUSE Linux and all things open source. In my channel, I will try to clear the ambiguity around OpenSUSE Linux. Today we are diving into a fundamental topic for anyone using Linux, especially beginners, the Linux file system. We will explore the File System Hierarchy Standard, FHS, and the different file types you will encounter in Linux. So let's get started. So I made a small presentation to explain what is going on regarding the Linux file system. And as we can see here, a little bit of introduction. The Linux file system is the structure that holds all your data, unlike Windows, where you have drives like C and D. Linux has a single hierarchical directory structure. It starts from the root directory, denoted by a /, and branches out into various subdirectories. Okay, so we need to understand what did that mean exactly. So let's talk about disk partitioning and mount points with a very basic, simple way. So if you are on Windows, okay, and if you go to your command line PowerShell and you ran this command disk part and then list disk, select disk 0, list partition, and you might see something like that, okay, like system reserved, C drive, which is the most important one for Windows operating system, then recovery for the operating system itself, partition D, and if you have an extra space, you can create an extra drive, which is E. Maybe you can stop at D. Maybe you have like 4 terabyte hard disk, so we can have C, D, E, F, G, okay? So yeah, now I will not talk about the partition table. I will talk about it later. So let's try to make it simple here. And also in the same way in Linux, you have to partition your disk to make sure to install your Linux operating system on your disk. If you are a beginner and you already managed to install a Linux operating system, especially OpenSUSE, and I encourage everyone to give it a try and use OpenSUSE Linux, you will not regret it. So if you run these commands like list blk, list block, fdisk-l, or gdisk-l, and the name of the disk that you already installed Linux on it, okay? So you might encounter things like that, okay? It depends on your what you want to install Linux. Like some people, they don't want to make the EFI folder to be in a separate partition, but it's recommended to do that. Some people, they intend to like have only swap and root. Okay, some people, they have only swap, root, home. It depends on your needs. Okay, so now you have a block, your hard disk. Okay, and you manage to make it like small chunk blocks, and every single one of them will hold data. Okay, so the same concept on Windows partitioning, let's say C drive. Okay, so this is the name that you can access your disk on this particular space through this naming. Like I have file XYZ on C, okay? So you go to drive C to access that file or folder, okay? The same way on Linux, but on Linux, like /boot/EFI, you don't store your data there, okay? It is only for operating system boot files, okay? It is used by the operating system. And you have /boot. So when you go and run a command like cd space /boot, now you accessed this partition on your disk through the window which called /boot, okay? So whatever you create, like file, folder, whatever, the space that this thing will take from this space. from this block disk you already partitioned on your hard disk. Okay, if you are under slash root, so you are here on this partition in particular. Okay, so let's say slash root usr, you still here, slash etc, you still here, slash usr slash local, you still here in this partition. Okay, so now this partition, my entering point is slash home. Okay, so now I am on this particular block or particular partition of this disk. Okay, so the same way when you go to C drive, you are here in this specific partition. If you are on D, okay, you are on this. Whatever you create, like slash X, slash Y, slash Z, all these folders with their parents, okay, they are here. The space that will consume is from this disk partition. Okay, so now I hope this point is already clear, that the naming here in Windows we use letters. In Linux we use the slash root to denote the starting of my file system hierarchy, and it tells me where am I on this hard disk. Okay, so to clear this point more, we go to the next slide. Okay, so to explain what the meaning of the mount point, so here this disk partition, okay, the naming of the disk is slash dev slash sda. This disk got partitioned during the installation. The number 1 has a space, let's say 1G or 2G, and the mount point, the access point, the window that I can open and go to this particular space is slash boot slash EFI. Okay, so now this is DA, this partition, let's say, as I said, 1G or 2G, is mounted on this file system hierarchy, the starting point. So you can see here slash boot is the parent of EFI. So if I created anything here, of course, without the EFI, like I created directory XYZ, it will consume a space from this partition. Okay, but let's say I am here, but I did cd slash boot slash EFI. Now I became here, not here. Okay, so this naming, this mount point naming, is my access point, the starting point on this disk, on this particular partitioning on my disk. Here also on Windows machine, you can use the concept of a mount point. Let's say the third partition, which we gave it E letter, okay? You don't want to give it a little name. Like when you open your Explorer on your Windows machine, you can see C, D, E. You don't want to see E, okay? So you will go to your partitioning tool from in the settings and control panel and in your Microsoft operating system, and you can format this partition and don't give it a letter. And later on, okay, from the Explorer, you can create something called mount point. And this mount point will be a folder, let's say here, under the D drive. So when you go to D slash backslash E underscore mount underscore point, this is a name of a folder, directory. So automatically you became here. Once you stand here, you are here. Whatever you create under this folder, you are consuming a space from this partitioning. Okay, so now the mount point is my access point to a specific space block on my hard disk. That, let's say, like a cake, you got it cut for 8 pieces or 6 pieces, and each piece, okay, they are all on one plate, but the first piece you will put strawberry, okay, the second piece you will put raspberry, and so on. Okay, So when you are on a piece number 1, you can access your strawberry. Okay, you are on this particular piece of your hard disk. Okay, so I hope this point is already cleared, that the mount point is your access point. When you get your hard disk partitioned, okay, during the installation, okay, on Microsoft by default they get creating the C reserved system, all these partitions by default. And if we go back to remember that these partitions, system, reserved, recovery, you have no access to it. Okay, you have to go deep, like level of administration and some kind of tools to access these partitions. Okay, to see what kind of data is there. Okay, but used by the operating system itself, you cannot touch them. Okay, system and reserved, you should not play with them. Recovery, yeah, you can delete it, because at some point, some situation, people they want to increase C or D, they have to delete this recovery partition. But it is advisable after you finish, you try to recreate it again, okay, or to get extra space, because this is where Microsoft puts some files to recover your operating system when you see the blue screen of death. So here the same on Linux, the swap partition, you can access it, you can read the data on it, but by some level of administration and some commands to have the access to this swap and try to see what is in there. But in general, for normal user, you have no access to it. It's belong to the operating system, the kernel, okay, because from its name it's swapping the data from between memory and hard disk. The memory that needs high kind of read write, it stay and remain in memory, in RAM. But let's say some data became stale and no one is using it, like the operating system, they notice like for some time this file in particular is not used, they put it in swap, okay, and when you open it again or you try to interact with it, it will move it back again into the RAM, okay. So as I said, and I repeat again, because I know many people, they get confused. My talking here is for beginners, not for advanced user. Mount point is your access point to the partition on the disk. That, in other words, like let's say you are copying, cutting files, creating files, excuse me. That's where you go. Let's say you are on home folder. Here, this /home, it's holding all the created user on my operating system. So like you have user 1 and you have /home user 2. They all consume spaces here because the mount point of this partition is /home. So all the subdirectories under /home is consuming space from this partition, which is /dev/sda5. About these namings, we will explain it later, but I'm trying to make this video simple as much as possible. Okay? So let's move on to the next slide. So here, the File System Hierarchy Standard, or FHS, is a guideline that defines the directory structure and directory contents in Linux distributions. It helps maintain consistency and predictability across different distributions. Okay? So from here, now I have my disk got partitioned during the installation. I have this partition, swap, /root, /home. So for an example, what's under /root? /etc, /usr, /lib64, /var, /tmp. So whatever files get created under these folders or whatever get created here will consume a space from this disk partition. Okay? Here are some of the key directories defined by the File System Hierarchy Standard. That you start with the root, you have like /home, /etc, /opt, /boot, and of course we will go to the command line and I will show you how to know where are you on the file system on your system, like where are you on from the mount points you have on your system, and to list the mount points on your operating system. Okay, so that's an example for now. So let's go to the next slide. Here, like most common subfolders and directories on a Linux operating system. Okay, so we have the /root is the root directory. All other directories under it, under that slash. Okay, that's your start point to anywhere on your operating system. If you just do cd space /root, this sign only slash, so you are on a /root, which is you are on the partition that got mounted on this. Okay, so /bin is a shortcut for /usr/bin, which contains essential binary executables like ls, cp, and makedir. These are vital for system booting and repair. Okay, cp for copy, makedir to create a directory. /spin is from its name, system binaries. It's a shortcut for /usr/spin. Holds system binaries, which are programs for system administration like fdisk, reboot, and IP, and mostly run by the root user or an elevated regular user got a root permission by sudo. Okay, the /etc, which is the most important folder in your operating system. It's the same like control panel and microsystem and Windows Microsoft. Okay, so this one contain configuration files for the system and applications. For instance, like password, passwd contains user account information. The actual password, okay, the encrypted password for users, it's really in this one, shadow. Okay, before, back in time, everything used to be in /etc passwd, but after some time it was a security point, and the maintainer of Linux, especially the kernel, they decided to move the encrypted passwords from this to here. Okay, so this is an extra on opensuse tumbleweed. Okay, so far I still don't know why the maintainers of opensuse tumbleweed, they decided to move some of the configuration under /etc to /usr/etc. Okay, and for instance, like sudoers, the file that you create sudo configuration and the system-wide configuration for sudo command. Okay, here for users that can get elevated or get the permission to run some binaries on the system, like as they are root user. Okay, it goes here, and sudo is regarding the command sudo itself. Okay, and as I said before, the /home, each user personal directory is here. For example, /home username contains the personal files and directories of the username. Like if you guys watched my videos on installing opensuse leap, we created a user penguin during the installation. So my home folder is /home/penguin. Okay, /var stands for variable files, means these files keeps changing all the time, like logs, databases. Like /var/log contains system log files. Okay, which is one of the important things. Some people, they intend to make a separate disk space during the installation and they mount the /var/log. But when they need to do that, if you have a big kind of data transaction happening on your system, and if you are a home user, you don't have to do that and consume your or lose your hard disk space over /var/log. Okay, but in enterprise places like a bank, telecom, okay, they put this partition separate, this mount point /var/log on a separate disk, and they create some kind of backup routine for it, because logs is one of the important things for these enterprise entities. Okay, we have the /usr, okay, contains user programs and data. This directory is often split into subdirectories like usr bin for binaries and usr share for shared data. And as we said before, this one has a shortcut to /bin. Why? Some people, they say for compatibility, okay, and to do some kind of standard between Linux flavors, okay. The temporary files created by system and user processes, these files are often deleted upon reboot. So you don't have to care about here. If you are testing something, you need to download something, and after the installation, you want to make sure that the source of the files will get deleted when you reboot your system, you can put it here. So anything you don't care about, you put it here in /tmp. We have the /lib, and also the, I forgot to put here also, /lib and /lib64. These two folders, essential shared libraries and kernel modules needed for the binaries in bin and /sbin. Okay, this is because, you know, the Linux operating system mostly written in C, and many programs, when you run them and they start, they need to access some libraries to get more functionality. Okay, now the /usr/local, this one, okay, it's in all Linux flavors because it contains binaries compiled by the user manually, a safe place to not conflict with system libraries or binaries. Means this /usr local, okay, you can see /bin and also sbin and lib. So you have two type of installing a third-party application on your system. Okay, the first one is to get the source and you compile it by yourself on your operating system, okay, for whatever the needs comes up for you. Okay, or let's say you got a specific application, and the maintainer of this application, when you installing it, by default it choose this folder to install the binaries and the libraries. Okay, but in general, these ready applications to be installed on your Linux, they give you the chance to choose where to install this app, but by default it's always go there. Very rare applications go under /opt, okay, like Brave browser, okay, it goes under /opt, and like DaVinci Resolve, when you install it, it goes under /opt. Okay, so now we can move on and go and open the command line to continue with file types that you will encounter on your system. And because they think file types, it's better to see it practical on command line, in the command line, and it will be better to explain it from there. So let's head there and open our terminal. So let's open our terminal here to show the file types. Let's increase Ctrl+Shift+. It will increase the fonts for us here. Okay. And as I said before, Linux uses different file types to organize and manage data efficiently. So let's go through the main types you will encounter on your Linux, especially opensuse. The first one is the regular files, okay, which contains most of the operating system. Okay, so these regular files, like let's say I'm in my home folder. If I did ls-l, press enter, okay, this is my home folder. I have many files here. Okay, so let's clear the screen, Control L. So let's take an example, creating an example to work on it. So the command touch file, this command it just do a touching, means if the file is not there, it will create an empty file with the extension I give it to it. By the way, Linux doesn't care by the extension. Okay, they know about the file type from its content. Okay, so if I press enter, if the file is there, touch will not do anything to the file. Okay, if the file is there, touch will not do anything. If the file is not there, it will create the file. So if I did ls-l means long listing for the file.txt, we can see here the file is starting with a dash. Okay, so this dash at the beginning means it's a regular file, and most common type of files and can contain text, data, or binary information. Okay, like documents, images, executables, shell. Okay, this is the dash means here. Okay, the other one, okay, let's make a directory and we call it test underscore dir. And by the way, for Windows user, don't use spaces when you create a file name or a folder name, because on that case the command line will not understand the space and will create, like if I remove here the underscore, will create a two folder for me, test and dir. Okay, so be careful about that. If you want to make spaces, and which is not recommended in Linux, you can do like that: escape sequence backslash take space. Now it will create a folder names test dir with the one word, and there is a space between the two words. But to develop a good habit, don't do it. Okay, so now I created this folder. If I did ls-l test dir, okay, so now it is trying to list what is under the directory. Okay, like it's a parent folder, and it's trying to list what beneath it, what's under this folder. To get an information about this folder without listing what's under it, we add the argument d for directory and press enter. Now as we can see, it's starting with d. Okay, so now the file is starting with d means this is a folder directory. Okay, on Linux we use the word directory. Folder is for Windows, and it's showing me the owner and the group owner, and also for the file we did here, the owner and the group owner, and of course the size is nothing, and the date of the creation and the timing. Here it's called permissions. Okay, it is three groups of permission. The first three characters is for user, the second three characters for the group, and the last three characters is for other, or for the rest of the world. Okay, all these things will be explained when I make a video about the bash, the environment variables. We will talk about these things. Okay, but now we are talking about the file types on Linux, but mainly I'm talking about opensuse Linux. Of course, all these things share with the other Linux flavors. Okay, so the other one is the shortcuts or pointers to other files or directories, and they are similar to shortcuts in Windows. So how to create a shortcut here? Let's say this file, I want to create a shortcut for it. Okay, so the command is ln for link, -s for symbolic link. Okay, and the file you want to make a shortcut to it, and at the end the name of the shortcut. So let's say file shortcut.txt. Okay, and let's say you want to make a shortcut somewhere else, so you have to give the full path for it. Okay, we have full path and we have relevant path, and we will talk about the things also in other video when we start talking about the environment, the shell environment and bash. Okay, so you have to start it like that. Home, if I have an access to this bus like that. Okay, but let's make it simple. Okay, and I press enter. So if I did ls minus l or dash l for file.txt, okay, the file is there, still there, nothing happened. But if I go do the same for this one, shortcut, press enter, oh, see, now it's starting with L, means it's a shortcut, it's a link to another file. And as we noticed here, the default permissions for it is read, write, execute, read, write, execute, read, write, execute for the all three groups. Okay? And we can see here, this file is a link or a shortcut to this file. Okay? So now, if I opened this file shortcut and I wrote anything, okay, and if I opened the original file, I find the data there. Okay, so what will happen is the same concept. Now you have a shortcut to something, okay, a link to something. If the original thing got lost, the link you have or the shortcut you have has no meaning, lost its value, like it's linking to void, nothing. So let's remove this file, the original one, and we do ls to the shortcut that's there. Now see the color changed, okay, and based on my shell colored, it looks like it's dark orange or brown, but usually it has a background of red to tells you that the shortcut is not there anymore. Okay, that is the indication that it is not there. If the shortcut, the original file is there, it will be normal like that. Okay, but once the background and the color changed like that, means the original file is not there anymore. And if I tried to see this shortcut, okay, no such file or directory. What does that mean? It means that the command line concatenate, which is showing what's inside this file, okay, trying to follow the symbolic link or the link to the original file, but it cannot find anything. So that's why it's telling us no such file or directory. Okay, so this is the second type of files, symbolic link. The other one you might encounter and you might ask, what is it exactly? We have the character devices communication or communicate one character at a time, and block device. We have two types, the character devices and block devices. The character devices communicate one character at a time, while block devices communicate in blocks of data. These kind of concepts is a little bit advanced. We will explain it later, but for somehow or for now, these files, don't play with them, don't mess with them, because mostly they are under /dev. Okay, like for an example, if we did ls-l dev tty for our terminal, see, I press 2 times tab to show me what's in there. If I did that, we will see here it is starting with C. Okay, so anything starting with C means it's a character device. Okay, so tty device or this file under /dev is mostly for terminals, okay, or shell here, the one that I am using. Okay, the other one is for block. The best example for block devices is our hard disk. Before we said there are commands to show us how to list our mount points and our device or hard disks. The first one is ls-blk, okay, and press enter. This one is the most famous command to be used in between Linux administration and administrators. So this is my hard disk, okay, the first partition and the mount points, okay. The second one is slash boot, the third one is swap, and here this one temp slash srv slash root. All of them, they use the same drive here for root. It got mounted on this one and this one and this one. Also, this is an advanced thing to talk about right now, but in short, it's called loop mounting, okay, that you can use the same partition to get it mounted on different places on your file system hierarchy, okay. And we have the last one is for home. So let's, for an example, we take this one, okay. So ls minus l dev, and for Linux, by the way, if I highlighted something like that and the middle button on your mouse, the wheel one, if you press it, it will paste what you just highlighted. If we did that, see here, it's B, means it's block. And of course, for this, we don't access it like that. You don't mess with it, you don't remove it, you don't rename it, okay? Because on Linux, the kernel, how it works, everything is a file, okay? It doesn't mean if it is a file that you can access it and read it and play with it, okay? And there is another useful command called file. This command will show you what type of file is that. So if I press enter here, see block special. And if I go here and I used the file character special, okay. So just keep in mind the characters, you can use it in your shell scripting, okay, but the block, be careful because they have specific use when you start to accessing it through command line, okay. And the other commands, we have to be root to run it, which is fdisk minus l, and it will show you the partitioning on your hard disk without the mount points, okay. And because my hard disk has a GPT partitioning table, so we can run this gdisk -l, but here I have to give it the name of the disk, the parent disk, not without the partitions. And if I did like that, press enter, again, it shows me the partitioning without the mount points, but it gives me the names that I gave to the disk during the installation. You guys can go and watch my videos about opensuse installation, and you will see that we give a name for the partition that we created for boot, swap, root, home, okay. So, and these two commands, gdisk and fdisk, you have to run it as a root, okay. Now also we have another type of files, which is sockets and named pipes, and these two also more advanced, and we will talk about it in a different video, not for now. So we can talk a little bit about symbol commands. We already talked about ls-l to list the files in the directory you are there, standing there, and we show how to create a symbolic link for a file, and also the same can be done on directories. And we can go back, exit here to our regular user, and we already created this directory, okay. This one we can do ln -s, okay, and test dir 2. So if I did ls d, the argument d, we use it with directory, okay, and with 2. Now here it's a symbolic link or a shortcut to the original folder. Again, if I deleted this one, the original one, and let's delete the symbolic link from before. So if I did this command again on the shortcut I created, see, the color changed because the original one is not there anymore. Okay, so even if I try to go and see, the bash is not completing the name because it can feel that this shortcut where it's pointing is not there anymore. But let's say I enter it like that and I try to do cd change directory, no such file or directory. Okay, so let's delete this one. And what else we left here? So that's a wrap. Okay, about we explored so far about Linux file system and file system hierarchy standard and the different types of files you might encounter as a beginner level. Okay, my talking here is not for the advanced users, okay, out there. I'm talking to the beginner, the people, the users that they just started their journey with Linux, and I'm trying to make it simple for them to make it less struggling, okay, because these kind of concepts is crucial for effective system administration and usage. Okay, so please, if you found the video helpful for you, don't forget to subscribe and like and share, and make sure to subscribe to my channel for more tutorials in the future. And you have, please leave any questions or comments down below, and I will be happy to answer them. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.